My name is Elena Ward. I'm the oldest daughter, the quiet one. The one who never married, never made headlines, and always worked somewhere in D.C. That's how they describe me at family gatherings. A desk, a ghost, a polite absence. The backyard party spreads across manicured grass in Alexandria, Virginia. String lights hang between oak trees, casting warm shadows over faces I recognize from Christmas cards and LinkedIn updates. Catered appetizers rest on white tablecloths. Soft jazz drifts from hidden speakers. Everything screams suburban success, the kind that photographs well and fits in holiday newsletters. Dad's 70th birthday. 3 generations gathered to celebrate a man who built his law practice from nothing and raised 2 daughters who couldn't be more different. The guests sip wine and exchange stories about market trends, vacation homes, and children's achievements. I stand near the edge of the garden watching. Elena, my sister Brooke's voice cuts through the ambient conversation. She approaches with her usual entourage, 3 women I recognize from her social media content. Content creators, DC, consultants, a lawyer who specializes in media law. They move like a small solar system with Brooke at the center drawing light and attention. Brooke Ward is everything I never became. Rising media personality. Influencer meets activist. The truth teller who speaks for a generation tired of being ignored. Her podcast reaches 500,000 listeners monthly. Her Instagram posts get more engagement than most congressional hearings. She's brilliant, loud, and adored by people who've never met her. Everyone, this is my older sister, Elena Ward. Brooke announces, gesturing toward me with her wine glass. She works for the government, at a desk somewhere in D.C. The group turns their attention to me with polite smiles. I recognize the look, the way people's eyes glaze over when they hear government work. It's the conversational equivalent of watching paint dry. What kind of desk work? Asked Madison, the lawyer. She's genuinely curious, probably hoping for gossip about bureaucratic inefficiency or political scandals. The boring kind, I reply, sipping my water. Paperwork, meetings, you know. Brooke laughs, and it's the sound of someone who's never doubted her own relevance. Elena's always been modest. But seriously, it's probably proofreading drone memos or fixing typos in top-secret documents. Nothing like changing the world or making real impact. Her friends snicker, not cruel laughter, but the kind that happens when someone confirms what everyone already assumed. I smile softly, letting the moment settle around us like dust. Must be nice having job security, though, offers Ashley, one of the content creators. She means it as a consolation prize, the way people talk about stable marriages or reliable cars. Very stable, I agree. Brooke raises her glass toward the party, her voice carrying across the garden. To family truth and making real impact. The toast draws attention from nearby clusters of guests. They raise their glasses in response, drawn to her natural magnetism. And to my sister, she continues, looking directly at me, who keeps the government running from behind the scenes. Someone has to handle the paperwork while the rest of us are out here changing the world. More laughter ripples through the crowd. Warm, inclusive laughter that wraps around me like a blanket I never asked for. Dad beams from his chair near the house, proud of both his daughters in ways that make sense to him. The successful one and the steady one. I take another sip of water and let my gaze drift across the party. Conversations resume. The jazz continues. String lights sway gently in the evening breeze. Everything returns to normal because nothing significant has happened. Just another family gathering where roles are confirmed and expectations are met. But something tightens behind my eyes. Not anger, anger is too hot, too visible. This is something colder, more patient. They think I'm harmless. That's always been my greatest weapon. I excuse myself from Brooke's circle and walk toward the edge of the garden, where the landscaping gives way to a small fence, separating our family's property from the neighbors. The party continues behind me, but the sounds feel distant now, like watching a movie through glass. My phone rests in my jacket pocket. Silent, waiting. On most evenings, it stays quiet. Tonight feels different, though I can't explain why. Maybe it's the way Brooke's laughter echoes across the yard. Maybe it's the assumption in her voice when she described my work. Maybe it's the accumulated weight of 1,000 small moments like this one. I turn back toward the party and watch my sister hold court near the appetizer table. She's telling a story about her latest podcast episode, something about government transparency and the importance of speaking truth to power. Her audience hangs on every word. She gestures with confidence, her voice carrying the authority of someone who's never been told she doesn't belong. She's never had to earn her voice. It was given to her, expected, celebrated. Mine was different. Mine was earned in rooms she'll never see, making decisions she'll never know, about carrying weight she's never felt. The jazz music shifts to something softer. Guests begin to gather around Dad for photos. 3 generations smiling for cameras that will capture this moment and file it away with all the other moments that look exactly like happiness. I remain at the edge of the garden watching my family celebrate another year of getting older without getting wiser. Tomorrow they'll post these photos on social media. They'll tag me as Elena Ward, and someone will ask what I do for work. The answer will be the same as always. Something quiet, something boring, something that doesn't matter very much. They have no idea how wrong they are. I walk quietly to the furthest edge of the garden, where the fence meets a cluster of hydrangea bushes. The party continues behind me, but I need this distance, this space to breathe without performing the role they've assigned me. I don't wear uniforms to parties. I don't list my rank on Christmas cards. Most people assume I'm single because I'm too boring to find rather than too busy to look. They see what they expect to see, and I've learned to let them. But if you're still listening, maybe this will sound familiar. Being underestimated by your own family. Being erased by someone who once begged to sleep in your room after nightmares. Brooke was 7 when the thunderstorms started getting to her. She'd pad down the hallway in her pajamas, clutching a stuffed rabbit, asking if she could sleep in my bed. I was 13, already serious about grades and college applications, but I always said yes. She'd curl up against my shoulder and whisper about the monsters in the thunder, how the lightning made shadows that looked like claws. Elena will protect me, she'd tell Mom when the storms came. Elena always knows what to do. I'd stroke her hair and tell her stories until she fell asleep. Made-up adventures about brave princesses and clever heroines who saved kingdoms with their minds instead of their swords. She loved those stories. Said she wanted to be like the princesses who used their voices to change the world. I suppose she got her wish. The memory sits differently now, watching her command attention 30 feet away. The little girl who needed protection became the woman who no longer sees me as capable of providing it. Somewhere between childhood and her first viral video, I transformed from protector to irrelevance. But I'm not bitter. Bitterness is a luxury I can't afford, and it clouds judgment. What I am is prepared. Always prepared. That's what they train you for in my line of work, to be ready for the moment when preparation meets opportunity. The evening air carries the scent of jasmine and citronella candles, normal suburban fragrances for a normal suburban gathering. I close my eyes and listen to the layers of sound conversations mixing with laughter, ice clinking in glasses, the soft jazz weaving through it all. This is the soundtrack of a life I could have chosen. Safe, predictable, visible. Instead, I chose the alternative, the path that requires invisibility, the work that matters precisely because no one knows it exists. My phone remains silent in my pocket, but I can feel its weight. On most Saturday evenings, it stays quiet. Family time, personal time. The artificial boundary between the woman who smiles at birthday parties and the woman who makes decisions that ripple across continents. Tonight feels different, though. There's electricity in the air that has nothing to do with the string lights or the upcoming weather. It's the feeling you get when 2 parts of your life are about to collide and you're the only one who sees it coming. I turn back toward the party once more. Brooke has moved to the center of the garden, still holding court, still commanding attention with effortless charisma. Her friends laugh at something she said. Dad watches her with unmistakable pride. The golden daughter living up to every expectation. She has no idea what's coming. None of them do. But I'm ready. The garden party fades around me as memory takes over. Not the soft-edged nostalgia of childhood storms, but the sharp focus recall that comes with high-stakes decision-making. The kind of memory that gets filed in classified reports and locked away from public view. 3 months ago, Thursday morning, 0647 hours, I'm seated in a fortified underground command center 2 stories beneath the Pentagon. No windows, no natural light. Just the blue glow of multiple monitors displaying real-time intelligence feeds from halfway around the world. The air smells like recycled oxygen and strong coffee. My desk, if you can call it that, consists of 3 curved workstations, forming a semicircle around my chair. Colonel Ward final authorization required for Blackwater Protocol. The voice belongs to Major Thompson, my operations coordinator. He's 28 MIT graduate, the kind of analytical mind that can process threat assessments faster than most people read headlines. His screen shows a digital map of Eastern Europe, dotted with red markers indicating hostile surveillance networks. Threat assessment. I ask, though I already know the answer. I've been tracking this operation for 6 weeks. Adversarial state's surveillance network has compromised 17 of our assets. 3 field operatives are currently in immediate danger. Window for extraction closes in 14 minutes. I study the data streams flowing across my monitors. Human intelligence reports from field agents. Satellite imagery updating in real time. Communication intercepts translated into English by algorithms that work faster than human ears. This is what desk work looks like when lives hang in the balance. Civilian proximity. Apartment complex 400 meters from primary target. Estimated 47 residents. Nursing home 600 meters southwest. 93 elderly residents. The numbers matter. They always matter. Every operation exists within a web of potential consequences that extends far beyond the immediate objective. One miscalculation, one variable we didn't account for, and innocent people die. Their deaths get classified, too buried in reports that acknowledge casualties without naming them. Backup extraction routes. Compromised. They're tracking our people through the same network we need to disable. I close my eyes for 3 seconds. Not prayer, I'm not religious. It's a mental reset, a way of clearing everything except the decision that needs to be made. When I open them, the situation hasn't changed. 3 American operatives in hostile territory, a surveillance network that needs to be neutralized. Civilians who have no idea their safety depends on a woman sitting at a desk in an underground bunker. Execute Blackwater Protocol. Authorization code Echo 77. Yes, ma'am. Blackwater Protocol is live. The next 18 minutes unfold in slow motion and lightning speed simultaneously. I watch data streams shift as our cyber attack penetrates the adversarial network. Digital warfare conducted through fiber optic cables and satellite links. No bullets fired, no explosions, no dramatic chase scenes. Just code executing against code in a battle fought in ones and zeros. Surveillance network is down. Extraction window is open. Civilian impact. Minimal, some communication disruption in the target area, but no casualties. Confirm extraction of all 3 assets. Confirmed. All assets are secure. That day, I didn't wear a weapon. I issued a command from a desk. It still echoes in classified transcripts no one will ever read. 3 families got to see their loved ones come home. 47 apartment residents never knew their lives were at risk. 93 elderly people continued their quiet routines in the nursing home, unaware that their safety hung on a decision made by someone they'll never meet. The operation earned a footnote in a classified report that gets filed in a vault somewhere beneath Washington, D.C. No newspaper coverage, no medal ceremony, no public recognition. Just another Thursday morning in a career built on invisible victories. My entire career has been operations buried under national security clearance. Missions that matter precisely because no one knows they exist. While Brooke builds her platform on transparency and truth-telling, I work in the shadows where transparency gets people killed, and truth is a luxury that costs lives. The promotions I've been offered to positions with more visibility, more prestige, more distance from actual operations, I've declined them all. Each refusal gets noted in my personnel file, with polite language about career development and advancement opportunities. What they don't document is the real reason I prefer the weight of real decisions to the politics of perceived importance. 2 years ago, I was nominated for the Distinguished Service Cross. The citation was written, the paperwork processed, the ceremony scheduled. Then it disappeared. Not officially canceled, simply vanished from the system. No explanation, no follow-up, no investigation. I never found out why, but I have suspicions. Someone decided that a colonel named Elena Ward was getting too much attention, even the classified kind. Someone preferred that my work remain completely invisible, even to the people who approve commendations for invisible work. The irony isn't lost on me. While Brooke fights for recognition and platform and voice, I've been systematically erased from the very system I serve. My victories get filed under other people's names. My decisions get attributed to committees. My career exists in the spaces between official records. But the work continues. The desk work that saves lives and topples governments and keeps the world spinning on its axis. Every morning, I sit down at workstations that cost more than most people's houses, and I make decisions that ripple across continents. I authorize operations that will never see daylight. I protect people who will never know my name. The memory fades as the sound of laughter pulls me back to the present. I'm standing in my father's garden again, watching my sister entertain her audience with stories about speaking truth to power. The contrast feels sharper now, the woman who demands recognition for her voice, and the woman whose voice carries the weight of national security. My phone remains silent in my pocket, but I can feel its presence like a heartbeat. On most Saturday evenings, it stays quiet. Family time exists in a separate compartment from the work that defines me. But tonight something feels different. The air carries electricity that has nothing to do with the string lights or the approaching weather. Tonight feels like the night when compartments collapse and truths get revealed whether we're ready for them or not. The vibration against my ribs is subtle, two quick pulses that most people would mistake for a text message. But I know the difference. Personal messages buzz once. Work calls ring with standard tones. The encrypted line vibrates in a specific pattern that cuts through whatever else is happening in my life. I glance around the garden party. Dad is posing for photos with some of his law partners near the rose bushes. Mom moves between groups of guests, the perfect hostess, ensuring everyone has drinks and conversation. Brooke continues holding court by the appetizer table, her voice carrying across the yard, as she tells another story about her latest podcast episode. No one notices when I slip my phone from my jacket pocket. The screen shows a single notification from a contact labeled DC Metro Transit. To anyone looking over my shoulder, it would appear to be a delayed train alert or service disruption, the kind of mundane notification that gets ignored at social gatherings. I swipe to open the message. Raven Protocol Alert, target confirmed, green light from Pentagon Ops. The second line appears immediately. Standing authorization required, call E Ward, code E4. My pulse doesn't quicken, my breathing doesn't change. This is the conditioning that comes with years of high-stakes operations, the ability to receive critical information without broadcasting its significance to everyone around you. But my mind shifts into a different gear, processing implications and calculating responses. Raven Protocol. I know this operation. I've been tracking it for 2 weeks, waiting for confirmation that our intelligence was accurate. The target is a network of hostile operatives who've been infiltrating American media organizations, using legitimate journalists and content creators to spread disinformation. They're not terrorists in the traditional sense, they're information warfare specialists, who understand that the most effective way to damage a democracy is to make its citizens doubt their own institutions. The green light from Pentagon operations means the threat has been confirmed and immediate action is authorized. My authorization, my decision, my responsibility. I pause, taking a sip of my water while my thumb hovers over the phone's keyboard. Around me, the party continues its gentle rhythm. String lights sway in the evening breeze. Jazz music flows from hidden speakers. Guests laugh and share stories about their children, their careers, their plans for summer vacations. None of them know that the woman standing by the garden fence is about to authorize an operation that will neutralize a threat to the very freedoms they take for granted. They see Elena Ward, the quiet sister who works at a desk somewhere in D.C. They have no idea they're looking at Colonel Elena Ward, who carries the authority to protect their right to gather like this, to speak freely, to live without fear of foreign manipulation. I type a single phrase. Execute Raven Echo. Confirm movement. I'll be inbound. The response comes within seconds. Confirmed. Raven Echo is live. ETA required for final authorization sequence. I glance at my watch. 8:47 p.m. The party will continue for at least another hour. Dad's birthday cake hasn't been served yet. The traditional family photos still need to be taken. Under normal circumstances, I would stay until the end, helping Mom clean up and listening to Dad's stories about his law practice. But these aren't normal circumstances. I type ETA 2330. Maintain operational readiness. Understood. Standing by for final authorization. I slide the phone back into my pocket and turn toward the party. Brooke is still laughing with her friends, gesturing expressively as she describes some confrontation with a government official who tried to dodge her questions. Her audience hangs on every word, impressed by her fearlessness in speaking truth to power. If only they knew how much truth she's about to learn. The irony sits heavy in my chest. My sister has built her entire platform on the premise that the American people deserve to know what their government is doing. She believes in transparency, accountability, the public's right to information. She's made a career out of demanding answers from officials who prefer to work in shadows. But some shadows exist for good reasons. Some secrets protect the very democracy she claims to serve. And sometimes the people who work in those shadows are the only thing standing between freedom and the forces that would destroy it. I walk slowly back toward the main party, my movements calm and deliberate. No one notices anything different about me. No one sees the weight of national security settling on my shoulders. I'm still just Elena, the quiet sister who works at a desk somewhere in DC. Elena, Mom calls out, waving me over to a group of family friends. Come tell the Johnsons about your work. They're always curious about what you do. I smile and join the circle, making polite conversation about bureaucracy and paperwork, while my phone sits silent in my pocket. The operation is now in motion, set into action by a woman standing in her father's garden, surrounded by people who think she's harmless. In 3 hours, I'll be back at the Pentagon, authorizing actions that will reshape the information landscape without anyone knowing it happened. But for now, I'm just Elena Ward, listening to small talk about mortgage rates and vacation plans, counting down the minutes until I can slip away to do the work that really matters, the work that no one will ever know about. The party winds down as guests begin collecting their purses and saying their goodbyes. Dad holds court by the front door, shaking hands and accepting birthday wishes with the gracious charm that built his law practice. Mom orchestrates the cleanup with military precision, directing family members to fold tables and collect glasses. I'm stacking dessert plates when Brooke appears beside me, her media-trained smile slightly loosened by wine, and the satisfaction of a successful performance. Elena, can we talk for a minute? She glances around to ensure we're not overheard. Privately, I follow her to the far corner of the garden, where the string lights cast dancing shadows on the fence. The distance muffles the sounds of cleanup and conversation, creating a pocket of semi-privacy in the controlled chaos of a family gathering. Look, Brooke begins, her tone shifting to something that might pass for sisterly concern. I hope you didn't take what I said earlier too seriously, about the desk work and everything. She waves her hand dismissively. Come on, don't be so sensitive. We know you do something important-ish, but it's not like war room important. She laughs softly, the sound designed to take the edge off words that cut deeper than she realizes. Or maybe she realizes exactly how deep they cut, and that's the point. I say nothing. There's power in silence, something I learned early in my career. Let people fill the quiet with their own assumptions. Let them reveal more than they intended while thinking they're being generous. I mean, government work is government work. She continues, encouraged by my lack of defensive response. Someone has to handle the bureaucracy. Someone has to process the paperwork. It's just different from what I do. Different from making actual change in the world. She always needed me small, so she could feel big. The realization isn't new, but tonight it carries additional weight. Standing here in Dad's garden, listening to her minimize my life with such casual precision, I understand that this dynamic didn't emerge from nowhere. It was cultivated carefully, maintained, deliberately reinforced over years of small moments like this one. You know what I mean, Brooke presses, misreading my silence as agreement. We each have our roles. You keep the system running from the inside, and I hold it accountable from the outside. Different approaches, but both important in their own way. The condescension is wrapped in just enough generosity to provide plausible deniability. She's not dismissing my work, she's just acknowledging that it's different from hers. Less visible, less impactful, less significant to the grand project of improving the world. Memory surfaces without warning, sharp and unwelcome. 18 years ago. Spring semester of my senior year at Georgetown. I was 21, graduating summa cum laude, already accepted to West Point with a recommendation for the accelerated leadership track. My professors spoke in hushed tones about my potential, about the rare combination of analytical intelligence and strategic thinking, that could reshape military operations for the next generation. I was on track for West Point valedictorian, the kind of honor that opens doors for decades, that marks you as someone destined for the highest levels of command, the kind of recognition that changes the trajectory of an entire career. Then the complaint arrived, anonymous, detailed, devastating. The email described multiple instances of academic dishonesty, plagiarism on papers I'd written myself, collaboration on individual assignments, violations of the honor code that form the foundation of military service. The accusations were specific enough to require investigation, vague enough to be difficult to disprove definitively. The investigation lasted 6 weeks. 6 weeks of suspended recommendation, postponed graduation, and whispered conversations that followed me across campus. My professors maintained their support, but doubt crept into their voices. Other students began keeping careful distance, unwilling to associate with someone under honor code review. In the end, the charges were dismissed. Insufficient evidence, no proof of wrongdoing, but the damage was permanent. The recommendation for accelerated leadership track was quietly withdrawn. My class ranking dropped from 1st to 7th. The trajectory of my entire military career shifted in those 6 weeks, launching me toward operational roles instead of command track positions. I never found out who sent the email. The investigation preserved the anonymity of the complainant, protecting them from potential retaliation. But years later, cleaning out my laptop before a deployment, I discovered something in the browser history, a saved password for an email account I'd never created. An account that existed for exactly 6 weeks, sent exactly one message, then disappeared forever. The account was created from Brooke's dorm room computer. I found the digital fingerprints buried in metadata that most people never think to check. Traceable IP addresses, timestamps that aligned perfectly with her class schedule, technical markers that pointed to her laptop with forensic precision. I could never prove it. The account was gone, the trail carefully scrubbed by someone who understood how to cover digital tracks. But I knew, and more importantly, I understood why. Brooke was 17 then, already showing signs of the charismatic presence that would later build her media career. But she was also the younger sister of someone who seemed destined for recognition she could never match, someone whose achievements cast shadows she couldn't escape. So she changed the game. If she couldn't outshine me, she could dim my light enough to make her own seem brighter by comparison. Elena, Brooke's voice pulls me back to the present. You're being awfully quiet. I'm trying to have a conversation here. I look at her, really look at her. The confident smile, the perfectly styled hair, the clothes that photograph well for social media. The woman who built a platform on demanding truth from institutions while hiding her own deceptions behind sisterly concern. I heard you, I say, finally. Different roles, different approaches. Exactly, relief floods her voice. I'm glad you understand. I was worried you might be taking things too personally. My phone vibrates once against my ribs, a reminder that I have real work waiting. Work that matters more than family dynamics and childhood wounds. Work that requires me to set aside personal grievances in service of larger responsibilities. But tonight, those compartments feel less secure than usual. Tonight, the woman who sabotaged my military career is lecturing me about the importance of the work she doesn't know I actually do. The irony would be amusing if it weren't so dangerous. Sunday morning arrives gray and overcast, matching my mood as I drive through the empty streets toward the Pentagon. Most of Washington sleeps late on weekends, but national security operates on a different schedule. Threats don't observe traditional business hours, and neither do the people tasked with neutralizing them. The call came at 06:30, 30 minutes after my usual wake-up time, but 3 hours earlier than anyone expects to hear from work on a Sunday. The voice on the encrypted line was crisp, professional, and urgent in the way that makes experienced operators check their weapons and clear their schedules. Colonel Ward, SIF briefing required. Priority Alpha, ETA 15 minutes. Priority Alpha means everything else stops. Personal plans get canceled, family obligations get postponed, and the civilian world becomes temporarily irrelevant. I dress in my standard weekend uniform, dark suit, minimal jewelry, the kind of outfit that photographs as government employee, without revealing specific rank or function. The drive to the Pentagon takes 12 minutes through empty suburban streets. I badge in through the weekend security checkpoint, navigate the familiar maze of corridors, and descend 2 levels to the sensitive compartmented information facility, where classified briefings happen away from electronic surveillance and foreign intelligence gathering. The SIF is a windowless room designed to contain secrets, sound-dampening walls, electronic countermeasures, and security protocols that ensure conversations stay buried in classified files. Colonel Mitchell waits inside along with 2 intelligence analysts I recognize, but rarely work with directly. Colonel Ward, Mitchell stands as I enter his expression, carrying the weight of information he'd prefer not to deliver. Thank you for coming in on short notice. I take my seat at the conference table, noting the classified folders arranged in front of each chair. Red covers indicate top secret material, the kind of intelligence that shapes foreign policy and justifies operations that never appear in congressional briefings. What's the situation? I ask, skipping pleasantries. Priority alpha briefings don't allow time for social niceties. Your sister's podcast, Mitchell begins without preamble. Brooke Ward, how much do you know about her content production process? The question hits like cold water. My personal life and professional responsibilities exist in separate compartments for good reason. When those compartments collide, it usually means someone's world is about to change dramatically. Basic knowledge. She produces weekly episodes about government accountability and media transparency. Large following, significant reach. I keep my voice neutral, professional. Why? The next drop in Brooke Ward's podcast isn't just media. Mitchell continues, sliding a folder across the table. Our analysts discovered embedded metadata from a classified leak, specifically intelligence regarding ongoing operations in Eastern Europe. I open the folder, scanning the technical analysis that reads like a digital autopsy. Code fragments, data signatures, transmission pathways that trace the journey of classified information from secure Pentagon servers to public podcast files. How classified? I ask, though the red folder already provides the answer. High enough to compromise active assets. High enough to get people killed. Mitchell's voice carries the weight of operations that depend on secrecy. Your sister's organization has unknowingly amplified a hostile foreign actor's payload. They're using her platform to disseminate intelligence that could destabilize 3 ongoing missions. The room falls silent except for the subtle hum of electronic countermeasures. I study the analysis, noting timestamps that align with Brooke's recent episode's data signatures, that match known hostile intelligence patterns and transmission routes that connect her content distribution network to foreign server farms. She doesn't know, I say. It's not a question. I know my sister well enough to recognize her patterns. She's ambitious sometimes, reckless, but not treasonous. Someone's using her platform without her knowledge. Correct, but that doesn't change the operational implications. Mitchell slides another folder across the table. The next episode is scheduled to drop tomorrow night. If it goes live with the embedded payload, we lose 3 assets and compromise ongoing counterintelligence operations. The second folder contains operational parameters, the scope of potential damage, the timeline for intervention, and the authorization levels required for various response options. I scan the documents, processing implications that extend far beyond family dinner conversations. Orders, I ask? Intervene quietly, cleanly, by any means necessary. Mitchell's voice carries the authority of decisions made at levels above both our pay grades. You have 48 hours to shut it down. Methods are at your discretion, but operational security remains paramount. By any means necessary. The phrase carries weight that civilians don't understand. It's authorization to use whatever tools, resources, or strategies are required to complete the mission. It's also recognition that some threats require responses that operate outside normal protocols. Parameters for family involvement. I ask, maintaining professional distance from the personal implications. Your sister is a civilian who's been compromised by hostile actors. She's not the target, she's collateral damage in an information warfare operation. But the mission takes priority over family relationships. The words hang in the air like smoke from an extinguished fire. Professional duty versus personal loyalty. National security versus family bonds. The kind of choice that defines careers and haunts quiet moments for decades afterward. Resources available. Full operational support. Technical teams, cyber warfare capabilities, field assets if required. Whatever you need to neutralize the threat. Mitchell closes his folder, the gesture indicating the briefing's conclusion. Questions. I shake my head. The situation is clear, the parameters define the timeline established. In 48 hours, either Brooke's podcast episode gets neutralized or people die. People whose names I know, whose families send Christmas cards, whose safety depends on missions staying secret. Then you're authorized to proceed. Keep us informed of operational developments. I stand collecting the folders that now define the next 2 days of my life. Outside this room, it's still Sunday morning in suburban Washington. Families are having brunch, reading newspapers, making plans for lazy weekends. Inside this room, I'm holding authorization to dismantle my sister's career if necessary to protect national security. The compartments of my life have officially collapsed. And somehow, I'm not surprised. Monday afternoon finds me sitting in Brooke's sleek downtown DC office, surrounded by the aesthetic markers of digital influence, exposed brick walls, Edison bulb lighting, and motivational quotes rendered in trendy typography. Her assistant, an eager 23-year-old named Jessica, offers me artisanal coffee while I wait for my sister to finish her live stream. Through the glass partition, I watch Brooke perform for her audience. She's animated, passionate, gesturing emphatically as she discusses government overreach and the importance of transparency. Her voice carries the conviction of someone who believes completely in her own narrative. The comments streaming across her monitor show thousands of viewers hanging on every word. Elena. Brooke emerges from the recording booth, her media smile transitioning to genuine surprise. What brings you to my humble empire? Finally curious about how real journalism works. I stand maintaining the careful balance between sisterly affection and professional purpose. Thought I'd see where the magic happens. Do you have a few minutes to talk? Always have time for family. She gestures toward her office, a corner space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Potomac. Jessica, hold my calls for 20 minutes. Brooke's office reflects her public persona awards for investigative journalism photos, with political figures and a bookshelf lined with titles about democracy, accountability, and speaking truth to power. Her desk displays multiple monitors showing social media feeds, news aggregators, and analytics dashboards, tracking her audience engagement in real time. So, she says, settling into her chair with the casual confidence of someone comfortable in their own domain. What's this really about? You don't usually drop by unannounced. I take the chair across from her desk, noting the strategic positioning that places her slightly higher than visitors. Everything in this room is designed to reinforce her authority, her success, her importance in the information ecosystem. I'm concerned about your upcoming episode. I begin using the cover story I rehearsed during the drive over, the one about deep state operations. Her eyes light up with excitement. How did you... She catches herself, then grins. Never mind. I should have known word would get around. This is going to be massive, Elena, career-defining, the kind of expose that breaks the internet and changes everything. The enthusiasm in her voice carries a familiar quality, the same breathless excitement she had as a child when she discovered a secret or uncovered information that gave her leverage. Some patterns never change even when the stakes escalate from playground politics to national security. What kind of information are we talking about, I ask, maintaining the tone of sisterly curiosity rather than professional interrogation. Documents, audio recordings, evidence of systematic surveillance operations that violate constitutional protections. She leans forward, lowering her voice despite the privacy of her office. I'm talking about programs that monitor American citizens without warrants, operations that target journalists and activists, the kind of authoritarian overreach that people need to know about. My stomach tightens. She's describing legitimate intelligence operations using the language of constitutional violations. Someone has fed her carefully curated information designed to look like whistleblowing, while actually exposing methods that protect American interests abroad. Brooke. I say carefully, this isn't content, it's consequence. You're about to amplify a foreign disinformation campaign that could cost lives. She laughs, the same dismissive sound she made at Dad's birthday party. Now you sound exactly like the bureaucrats I interview, all dire warnings and vague threats about national security. Her voice shifts to mockery. You can't publish that. People will die. Trust the system. Some secrets exist for good reasons, and some secrets exist to protect people who abuse power. She stands pacing to the window overlooking the river. This is what they always do, Elena. They wrap surveillance and overreach in patriotic language and expect us to stay quiet. But transparency is how democracy survives. I watch her profile against the afternoon light, seeing both the little girl who used to beg for bedtime stories and the woman who built a career on demanding answers from institutions that prefer shadows. The tragedy is that she's not wrong about the importance of accountability. She's just been weaponized by people who understand how to turn legitimate oversight into strategic vulnerability. You sound like a bureaucrat with a badge, she continues, turning back toward me. Or maybe a soldier who forgot how freedom works. The accusation carries more weight than she knows. I am a soldier, one who took an oath to defend the Constitution she claims to protect. But that oath includes defending against enemies, both foreign and domestic, including threats that hide behind the language of transparency and justice. I reach into my briefcase and withdraw a small flash drive, placing it on her desk between us. You'll want to watch this, just before you hit upload. She stares at the device with suspicion. What is it called? Context. The kind your sources didn't provide. I stand, maintaining eye contact. There are things you don't know about the information you're planning to release. Things that change the entire narrative. Elena, you're scaring me a little. This isn't like you. Maybe you don't know me as well as you think. The words hang between us like a challenge. For the first time in our conversation, uncertainty flickers across her expression. The confident media personality wavers, replaced momentarily by the younger sister who used to seek my protection during thunderstorms. What aren't you telling me? She asks quietly. Everything. I pick up my briefcase, preparing to leave. But that flash drive will give you enough truth to make an informed decision about tomorrow's episode. And if I don't watch it, then you'll publish information that gets people killed, destroy operations that protect American interests, and hand a propaganda victory to hostile foreign actors who've been manipulating you for months. I pause at the door, but it will definitely break the internet. She follows me to the office door, her confidence shaken by the weight of implications she's starting to understand. Elena, if there's something you need to tell me, watch the drive, Brooke, all of it. Then make your decision about what kind of journalist you want to be. I leave her standing in her doorway, surrounded by the symbols of her success, holding a flash drive that contains classified footage from operations she's about to expose. Footage that shows the human cost of information warfare, the faces of assets whose lives depend on missions staying secret, and the careful balance between transparency and survival that defines modern intelligence work. In 18 hours, she'll either pull tomorrow's episode or upload content that compromises ongoing operations. The choice is hers, but I've given her the tools to choose wisely. Now I wait to discover whether sisterly trust can overcome professional ambition or whether family bonds break under the weight of competing loyalties. The drive back to Pentagon takes 23 minutes, long enough to wonder if I've just saved lives or destroyed the last relationship that connects me to the person I used to be before national security became more important than personal happiness. Long enough to hope I won't have to find out. Tuesday evening, 1947 hours. I'm seated in the same underground command center where I authorized the Blackwater Protocol 3 months ago, watching multiple screens that display real-time intelligence feeds from around the world. But tonight, one monitor shows something different. Brooke's livestream broadcast from her downtown office to an audience of nearly 200,000 viewers. Major Thompson sits at the workstation beside me, his fingers poised over a keyboard that could execute digital countermeasures within seconds of my authorization. Behind us, 2 technical specialists monitor communication intercepts and social media analytics tracking the global reach of whatever information my sister decides to release. Audio feed is clean, Thompson reports. No signs of hostile monitoring. If she uploads the compromised files, we'll have approximately 4 minutes before foreign intelligence services begin exploitation. 4 minutes. The window between my sister hitting publish and 3 American operatives losing their lives in Eastern European safe houses. The timeline feels surreal, family drama measured in operational casualties, personal relationships, quantified in strategic vulnerabilities. On screen, Brooke appears confident and energized, her usual pre-show demeanor enhanced by the anticipation of delivering what she believes will be career-defining content. She's dressed professionally, but approachably, her setup designed to convey trustworthiness and authority. The kind of visual presentation that makes viewers feel like they're receiving truth from someone who cares about their welfare. Good evening, truth seekers. She begins, her voice carrying the practiced cadence of someone comfortable addressing large audiences. Tonight's episode represents months of investigation into systematic surveillance operations that violate our constitutional protections. What you're about to see will fundamentally change how you understand the relationship between government power and individual freedom. The viewer count climbs steadily, $247,000, and rising. Comments stream across the live chat window faster than human eyes can follow. Her audience trusts her, believes in her mission, expects her to deliver information that mainstream media won't provide. They have no idea they're about to become unwitting participants in a foreign intelligence operation. But first, Brooke continues, I want to address something important. Earlier this week, I received information that gave me pause. Not because it challenged my reporting, but because it provided context that changes everything. My pulse quickens. She's deviating from her usual script, introducing uncertainty into what should have been a straightforward information dump. The flash drive is working its way into her presentation, though I can't predict how she'll integrate it with her planned exposé. As journalists, we have a responsibility to seek truth, but also to understand consequence, she says, her voice carrying less certainty than usual. Sometimes the most important story isn't the one that gets the most attention, but the one that protects the most people. Thompson glances at me, eyebrows raised. This isn't the tone of someone preparing to release classified information. This sounds like someone wrestling with competing loyalties, trying to reconcile professional ambition with personal responsibility. Brooke reaches beneath her desk and retrieves the flash drive I gave her yesterday. She holds it up to the camera, her expression uncharacteristically vulnerable. Yesterday, my sister gave me this. She told me it contained context that would change my perspective on tonight's story. She pauses, studying the device as if it contains answers to questions she hadn't known to ask. I almost didn't watch it. I was so confident in my sources, so certain of my narrative, that I nearly dismissed information that didn't fit my preconceptions. The viewer count reaches 289,000. Comments expressing confusion and impatience scroll past faster than before. Her audience came for explosive revelations, not philosophical discussions about journalistic responsibility. Let me show you what changed my mind, Brooke says, inserting the flash drive into her computer. The video that appears on her screen and broadcast to nearly 300,000 viewers shows grainy battlefield footage from an operation I authorized 8 months ago. Encrypted communications surveillance feeds the kind of real-time intelligence that gets classified at levels most people never imagine. But what Brooke sees, what her audience witnesses, are the human consequences of information warfare. Operatives scrambling to evacuate civilians from a marketplace that intelligence leaks had transformed into a target zone. Families fleeing with children in their arms while hostile forces closed in on positions they should never have known about. And in the audio feed barely audible above the chaos, my voice. Execute emergency extraction. All assets immediate exfiltration. Civilian protection is priority 1. One silent command that averted a massacre. One decision made from a desk in an underground bunker that saved dozens of lives. The kind of victory that never appears in news reports because acknowledging it would compromise future operations. Brooke watches the footage with growing understanding, her professional composure cracking as she processes the implications. She sees what happens when classified information gets weaponized by hostile actors. She witnesses the human cost of transparency without context, accountability without wisdom. The video ends. Brooke stares at her screen for several seconds while her audience waits for explanation, for context, for the revelations they came to hear. She begins, then stops. Her voice shakes with the weight of realization. We're postponing today's episode. The online chat erupts. Confused questions, angry demands, accusations of censorship and sellout. 300,000 people who expected explosive content instead receive an abrupt cancellation from someone who looks like she's seen a ghost. I need to verify some information. Brooke continues her media training, warring with genuine emotion. I need to ensure that seeking truth doesn't cost lives. Sometimes the most important story is the one you don't tell. She reaches forward and ends the live stream. The screen goes black. Thompson looks at me with barely concealed relief. Mission accomplished. I lean back in my chair, watching the now empty monitor while processing the magnitude of what just happened. My sister chose family trust over professional ambition. She chose the protection of strangers over the advancement of her career. She chose silence over exposure. understanding over revelation. Mission accomplished, I confirm. But something deeper has shifted tonight. The compartments between my professional life and personal relationships have collapsed permanently. Tomorrow I'll need to decide how much truth my family can handle and whether the woman who just protected national security deserves to know why her protection mattered. For now, though, 3 operatives in Eastern Europe remain alive, and my sister has learned that some truths are more dangerous than others. The Georgetown University alumni military ceremony takes place on a crisp Saturday morning in November, 6 days after Brooks canceled livestream. The venue is Gaston Hall, a formal auditorium where polished wood and stained glass windows create an atmosphere of academic gravitas mixed with military tradition. 200 attendees fill the seats: veterans, active duty service members, family members, and university officials gathered to honor military service and academic achievement. I sit in the 3rd row, wearing my standard civilian attire, dark suit, minimal jewelry, the professional anonymity I've cultivated throughout my career. The program lists today's keynote speaker as Brooke Ward, media personality and Georgetown alumna, scheduled to address transparency and democratic accountability in modern America. She's seated in the front row, having arrived early to review her remarks with the event organizers. Her speech, I assume, will focus on the importance of government accountability and the role of journalism in maintaining democratic oversight. Standard themes for her platform, though. I wonder how recent events might have influenced her perspective. The ceremony proceeds with familiar military precision: color guard presentation, national anthem, recognition of fallen alumni. Dean Patterson delivers opening remarks about the intersection of academic excellence and military service, the proud tradition of Georgetown graduates who serve their country in uniform and in civilian roles. Today's keynote address was originally scheduled to be delivered by acclaimed journalist and Georgetown alumna Brooke Ward. Dean Patterson announces from the podium. However, due to a last-minute scheduling change, we have the honor of hearing from another distinguished Georgetown graduate who has served our nation with exceptional dedication. A ripple of confusion moves through the audience. Brooke turns in her seat, her expression shifting from composed anticipation to surprised concern. She catches my eye as I stand and move toward the aisle, understanding dawning on her face as the pieces fall into place. Please welcome Colonel Elena Ward, United States Army Intelligence, Georgetown Class of 2003. The title hangs in the air like smoke from ceremonial cannons. Colonel, not administrative assistant, not bureaucratic functionary, not the harmless desk worker who handles paperwork and fixes typos. Colonel Elena Ward, carrying authority that reshapes every assumption my family has made about my life for the past 15 years. I walk to the stage in my civilian clothes, but everything about my bearing has changed. The careful invisibility I've maintained for years falls away, replaced by the command presence that comes with rank and responsibility. My steps are measured confident, carrying the weight of decisions that echo across continents. Dean Patterson shakes my hand at the podium, his expression reflecting the same surprise that ripples through the audience. The program change was arranged at the highest levels through channels that don't require explanation to university administrators. Sometimes national security takes precedence over academic scheduling. I face the audience, taking a moment to scan the faces looking back at me. Veterans who understand rank and service, family members who thought they knew my story, university officials processing the disconnect between their expectations and reality. And in the front row, my sister staring at me with the expression of someone watching their world reorganize itself around new information. Thank you, I begin my voice, carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being heard in rooms where lives hang in the balance. I was told this was just a desk job, but desks can make decisions that save entire nations. The silence in the auditorium feels different now. Not the polite attention given to scheduled speakers, but the focused quiet that comes when an audience realizes they're hearing something unexpected, something important. For 15 years, I've served in roles that require invisibility, operations that succeed precisely because no one knows they exist, missions that protect democratic institutions by working in shadows those institutions prefer not to acknowledge. I pause, letting the weight of implications settle. Today I'm authorized to share something that has remained classified until this morning. I reach into my jacket and withdraw a small leather portfolio, opening it to reveal a commendation that disappeared from official records 2 years ago. The Distinguished Service Cross now bearing signatures and seals that validate its authenticity at the highest levels of government. This commendation was originally denied for reasons of operational security. I continue holding the document where the audience can see it. The citation describes actions taken during a cyber warfare operation that neutralized hostile intelligence networks threatening American assets in Eastern Europe. The operation saved 17 lives and prevented the compromise of ongoing missions critical to national security. The audience remains silent, processing information that reframes everything they thought they understood about military service and government work. This isn't the ceremonial recognition usually distributed at alumni events. This is acknowledgement of real combat, real consequences, real victory achieved through methods that exist outside public understanding. The decision was made from a desk, I say making eye contact with Brooke, in an underground command center where visibility matters less than capability, where recognition matters less than results, where the work gets done by people whose names never appear in news reports, whose victories never get celebrated, whose sacrifices remain invisible to preserve the security they're designed to protect. I close the portfolio and return it to my jacket. Military service takes many forms. Some wear uniforms to formal dinners. Some receive public commendations and media attention. Others work in shadows, carrying rank and responsibility that family members never see, making decisions that family members never know about. The silence stretches longer now, weighted with understanding that transcends ceremony and enters the realm of revelation. I can see comprehension dawning on faces throughout the audience, the recognition that they've been looking at military service through assumptions that miss its most important dimensions. The people who serve in these roles don't do it for recognition. They do it because democracy requires protection that democracy prefers not to see. They carry secrets that preserve freedoms, make sacrifices that protect privileges, exercise authority that others can safely ignore. A hush settles over the auditorium. No clapping yet. No response at all except the weight of truth settling on an audience that came expecting standard ceremonial remarks. Then Brooke stands slowly from her seat in the front row. She raises her hands and claps once, then again. Her expression carries a mixture of pride, understanding, and something that might be apology for assumptions she can never take back. The rest of the room follows her lead. Applause builds gradually, not the enthusiastic response given to entertaining speakers, but the respectful recognition given to service that demands acknowledgement even when it resists visibility. I stand at the podium still in civilian clothes, still maintaining the careful balance between disclosure and operational security. But for the first time in 15 years, the work I do has been acknowledged in front of people who matter to me personally. The applause continues, and I meet Brooke's eyes across the auditorium. The little sister who once sought my protection during thunderstorms, who built a career on demanding transparency from institutions, who learned this week that some secrets exist to protect the people who never know they need protection. The woman who finally understands what her older sister actually does for a living. A week later, Brooke's rental car pulls through the security checkpoint at Fort Liberty, North Carolina. I watch from my office window as she navigates the visitor parking area, her movements uncertain in an environment that operates by rules she doesn't understand. No cameras follow her, no assistant manages her schedule, no audience waits to hear her thoughts on military installations and government transparency. She's wearing jeans and a simple sweater, the kind of outfit she might choose for grocery shopping or casual coffee with friends. No makeup beyond basic foundation. No jewelry beyond simple earrings. This version of my sister looks younger, more vulnerable, stripped of the professional armor that usually defines her public presence. The security escort brings her to my building 20 minutes later. I meet them in the lobby, noting how Brooke's eyes take in the institutional aesthetics of military architecture, polished floors, official portraits, the understated efficiency of a workspace designed for function rather than impression. Colonel Ward, the escort says, "Your visitor has been cleared for Building C floors 1 through 3. Thank you, Sergeant Mitchell. I'll take it from here." Brooke follows me through corridors that smell like floor wax and filtered air past offices where people in uniform conduct the daily business of national defense. She doesn't speak during the elevator ride to the 3rd floor, but I can see her processing the reality of my work environment, the badges, the security protocols, the casual authority that flows between personnel who understand their place in larger operations. My office reflects the same institutional efficiency as the rest of the building. Government-issued furniture secure computer terminals, filing cabinets that require special clearance to open. The walls display my military education certificates and commendation photographs, but nothing that reveals the specifics of what I actually do here. "This is where you work," Brooke says, settling into the chair across from my desk. It's not a question, but her tone carries the weight of someone trying to reconcile expectations with reality. "One of the places," I reply. "Operations move around depending on requirements." She nods, though I suspect she doesn't fully understand what operations means in this context. Her experience with military matters comes from research and interviews secondhand knowledge, filtered through journalistic investigation, rather than lived experience. "I've been thinking about what you said at the ceremony," she begins, her voice lacking its usual confident projection. "About defense being action, not explanation. Have you... I never understood why you never defended yourself. All those years when I..." She pauses, searching for words that acknowledge patterns she's only beginning to recognize. "When I minimized what you do, when I assumed your work was less important than mine, you just accepted it." I lean back in my chair, studying my sister's face. The media personality who built a career on asking difficult questions now struggles to formulate the questions she needs to ask. The woman who demands accountability from institutions now faces the complexity of accountability within families. "Defense implies attack," and I say. "You weren't attacking me. You were protecting yourself." Protecting myself from what word? From feeling small. The words carry no judgment, just observation based on years of watching family dynamics play out in subtle increments. "You needed me to be less significant, so you could feel more significant." It's a normal response to sibling competition. She winces, the kind of involuntary reaction that comes when someone holds up a mirror to behavior they've never examined closely. "That makes me sound terrible." "It makes you sound human." I stand and move to the window, looking out at the parade ground where soldiers conduct training exercises that prepare them for missions they may never be able to discuss. I chose work that requires invisibility. You chose work that requires visibility. We were never really competing. We were playing entirely different games. But I sabotaged your West Point candidacy. The admission comes out quietly, burdened with guilt she's apparently been carrying for years. "Yes." I confirm, not softening the acknowledgement. "You did." "How long have you known?" "Long enough." I turn back toward her, noting how the confession seems to have diminished her physically. But it doesn't matter now. That sabotage led me toward operational roles instead of command track positions. It changed my career trajectory in ways that ultimately served national interests better than the alternative path would have. She stares at me with the expression of someone trying to process forgiveness they don't feel they deserve. "You're not angry." Anger is counterproductive in my line of work. Understanding is more useful than emotion. We sit in silence for several minutes. The weight of 15 years of misunderstanding settling between us like dust from demolition. Outside, the sounds of military routine continue, vehicles moving, equipment, personnel, conducting briefings, the organized efficiency of an institution that operates according to principles larger than individual grievances. Brooke reaches into her purse and withdraws a small notebook, the kind journalists use for interview notes. She places it on my desk without explanation. "What's this?" "Something I should have given you years ago." She stands, preparing to leave. I wrote down questions I should have asked instead of assumptions I shouldn't have made. I open the notebook to find pages of handwritten text, not questions, but observations. Thoughts about service and sacrifice, visibility, and value, the difference between seeking truth and demanding attention. The handwriting is careful, deliberate, the work of someone trying to understand, rather than just document. On the last page, a single line. "This time, I'll listen." "Brooke," I call as she reaches the door. She turns back, hope and uncertainty mixing in her expression. "Thank you for canceling the podcast episode." She nods once, understanding that acknowledgement is as close to reconciliation as we may ever reach. Some relationships don't return to their original form after being broken. They become something different, more careful, perhaps more honest. The door closes behind her, leaving me alone with a notebook full of questions she's finally ready to ask, and answers I'm finally authorized to give. 3 months later, I stand before 32 military academy cadets in a secure classroom at West Point. The room where I once sat as a student dreaming of leadership roles I couldn't have imagined then. The irony isn't lost on me. The woman whose valedictorian candidacy was derailed by family sabotage now returns as an instructor teaching the next generation of officers about command responsibility. The seminar is titled Command Ethics in the Age of Noise. The course catalog describes it as an exploration of decision-making under conditions of information warfare, media scrutiny, and competing loyalties. What it really teaches is how to make life and death choices while the world watches, judges, and demands explanations you can't provide. Leadership in the modern era requires operating in multiple domains simultaneously. I tell the cadets, noting their intense attention, these are the future colonels and generals, the men and women who will inherit the responsibility of protecting democracy, while democracy questions their methods. Physical warfare, cyber warfare, information warfare, and the most complex domain of all, family warfare. A few cadets chuckle, recognizing the truth behind the terminology. Military service doesn't happen in isolation from personal relationships. Every officer carries the weight of decisions that families don't understand, sacrifices that loved ones can't see, victories that can never be shared over holiday dinners. The enemy understands this complexity. I continue clicking to the next slide in my presentation. They know that the most effective way to neutralize American military capability isn't through direct confrontation. It's through exploiting the tensions between service and family duty, and transparency, protection, and visibility. Cadet Thompson raises her hand, a sharp young woman from Colorado, who reminds me of myself at that age. Colonel Ward, how do you maintain operational security when family members work in media? The question hits closer to home than she knows. You establish boundaries, you compartmentalize information, and sometimes you let family members believe you're less capable than you actually are because their safety depends on that misunderstanding. But doesn't that damage relationships? Asks Cadet Rodriguez, a soft-spoken man from Texas, whose personnel file indicates parents in journalism. All service requires sacrifice, I reply. Sometimes you sacrifice recognition. Sometimes you sacrifice understanding. Sometimes you sacrifice the people you love, knowing who you really are because keeping them safe is more important than being known. The classroom falls quiet as 32 future officers process the implications. These cadets will graduate into a world where military service increasingly happens in shadows, where victories get classified and defeats get headlines, where the most important decisions are made by people whose names never appear in public records. Cadet Williams, a woman from Ohio whose analytical intelligence reminds me of my younger self, raises her hand with obvious hesitation. Colonel Ward, what if your greatest victory is the one no one's allowed to see? The question hangs in the air like incense in a cathedral, carrying weight that transcends academic discussion. This is the central paradox of modern military service. The possibility that your most important contribution to humanity will remain forever invisible, acknowledged only in classified files that may never be declassified. I look at each cadet individually, seeing in their faces the idealism and ambition that brought them to this institution. In 5 years, some of them will be making decisions that reshape global politics. In 10 years, they'll be protecting democracy through methods that democracy prefers not to examine. In 20 years, they'll be explaining to their own families why they can't discuss what they do for a living. Then you know it mattered, I say, finally. That's all that counts. The seminar concludes 20 minutes later with assignment instructions and reading recommendations. As cadets file out of the classroom, several approach with follow-up questions about career paths and specialization options. I answer what I can while maintaining the operational security that still governs my professional life. Cadet Williams lingers after the others leave, her expression thoughtful and determined. Colonel Ward, she says, I want to do what you do. Make the decisions that matter even if no one knows about them. I study her face, seeing ambition tempered by genuine understanding of service requirements. It's not a career path you choose, Cadet Williams. It's a career path that chooses you, usually when you're not expecting it. How will I know? You'll know when the work becomes more important than the recognition, when protecting people matters more than being thanked for protecting them. when victory feels the same whether anyone witnesses it or not. She nods and leaves, and I'm alone in the classroom where my own journey toward invisible service began 2 decades ago. The afternoon light slants through tall windows, illuminating empty desks, where future leaders learn to carry burdens they can't share with the people they love most. My phone buzzes once the pattern that indicates operational requirements. Another mission, another decision, another opportunity to make choices that echo in classified transcripts no one will ever read. They thought I was just doing desk work. They never realized desks can launch wars and end them with a single word. I gather my materials and head toward whatever crisis requires Colonel Elena Ward's attention, carrying the quiet satisfaction of knowing that service doesn't require an audience to have meaning. Sometimes the most important victories are the ones only you know about. That's all that counts.